theme of March Madness this week. Today's theme is a bitter rival. And pretty tough to see, but we have Elijah versus the prophets of Baal today. Specifically, Elijah versus Ahab. Now, this account is fairly long, so my plan today is to break it up into sections with some brief thoughts as we go along. Ahab went to meet Elijah. When he saw Elijah, he said to him, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" "I have not made trouble for Israel," Elijah replied, "but you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals." So, real brief background. Ahab is king of Israel. He's married to Jezebel. And together they're considered more evil than all the royalty before them for Israel. They actively sought out God's prophets to slaughter them, including including Elijah. They turned people to the false god of Baal, who was a fertility god that demanded bloodthirsty sacrifices, and Elijah had to go prophesy to Ahab. So these two had history, and the last time they were face to face was 3 years ago when Elijah prophesied a severe famine that was going to come to the land. So Ahab was looking for Elijah this whole time to kill him, and now they're face to face again. This is Elijah speaking. "Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. So if you did some quick math, this is one man versus 850, and seems severely outnumbered. And sometimes we feel like that too, that we're the only ones. That we're the only ones experiencing what we experience, and we can easily feel overwhelmed. And so the question is, what gave Elijah the courage to issue such a challenge? Well, you can probably guess, Elijah was not truly alone. Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." But the people said nothing. So you know in sports how sometimes players try to pump up the crowd. They'll do this to try to get the crowd cheering more. Or maybe there's two opposing fan bases jeering each other on and saying, "We got spirit. Yes, we do. We got spirit. How about you?" Elijah kind of does this, and the people say nothing. So they're not committing either way. And so, again, Elijah seemingly is all alone here. Then Elijah said to them, "I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers by fire, he is God." Then all the people said, "What you say is good." All right, so it seems pretty fair. Same set of circumstances for both sides. So the contest begins. Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose one of the bulls and prepare it first, since there are so many of you. Call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire." So they took the bull given them and prepared it. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. "Baal, answer us," they shouted. But there was no response. No one answered. And they danced around the altar they had made. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. "Shout louder," he said. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is in deep thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. So you ever witness something that is kind of funny at first, but then as it goes on and on, it gets less funny? So I was imagining, what if I stood up here and tried to do that floss dance thing? Like at first you might say, that's cute. I remember doing that 6 years ago. But then I keep going, and I'm really bad at it. And it's like 5 minutes pass, and 10 minutes pass, and I'm still trying to do this floss dance. Okay, it was kind of funny at first, but now I'm just embarrassed for you, Mr. Strehlow. This is not the venue for this. And then I keep going, and the bell rings, and I don't let you leave, because I'm going to figure this out, and you're going to appreciate it and enjoy it. And I start to cry because it's not going well. And so it went from kind of funny to embarrassing to kind of pathetic now. And again, I get red-faced, and an hour has passed, and I'm still going. And you're kind of getting angry at me. And I just crumble to the ground in tears and sweat. And it's just tragic. That's kind of what I feel is going on here. It's like the prophets are shouting to a God who doesn't answer. They start dancing around their altar. Nothing happens. And it's kind of funny. But then they keep going. Did you see that? They went all day with this and shouted louder and even cut themselves to bleed in this effort. It's just tragic because it ends with nothing. Elijah even mocks them. I don't know if it's so great that he did that he mocked them. Because if you think about it, we're kind of pathetic like that too, just in different ways. We're not necessarily trying to shout and dance for this false god. But if you think of it, individually, we've gone to some pretty pathetic lengths to try to get validation from things other than God. So you think of, like, what do we do for popularity? What lies do we spread? What rumors do we spread? To get a feeling of power, are we willing to harass or bully people? For wealth, what are we willing to sacrifice? Here's a warning from a Bible commentator on this section. If people have given their hearts to a modern Baal, they are worshiping a powerless God who will give no answer in a time of trouble, who will give no reply on our deathbed, who will give no help on the great judgment day. So, like the prophets of Baal who actually cut themselves, when we do things trying to find fulfillment other than through God, we also end up hurting ourselves. All right, back to our account. Second half. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come here to me." They came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Your name shall be Israel." With the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood." "Do it again," he said, and they did it again. "Do it a 3rd time," he ordered, and they did it the 3rd time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. At the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed. Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so that these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God." Then Elijah commanded them, "Seize the prophets of Baal. Don't let anyone get away." They seized them, and Elijah had them brought down to the Kishon Valley and slaughtered there. Elijah broke the rules. They had the contest set up, but he broke the rules. He actually made it much, much more difficult for himself. Elijah's setting up God for a very public display of power. And there's no doubt that this is the work of God. The fire consumed the water. Usually we think of water suppressing fire. This was opposite. The fire of the Lord burned up the stone. God is more powerful than anything human beings can come up with, including made-up gods. God's more powerful than the laws of nature. This no longer can be called a rivalry. It's a blowout. But did you catch the ultimate objective? Why was God doing this display of power? It was so that people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back to them. That you are turning their hearts back to again. So, despite the swagger of Elijah and the dramatics of the fire of the Lord, God is lovingly trying to get the attention of his people. To get them to remember his power to deliver them from earthly troubles like famine. To get them to remember his power to deliver them from an evil king. To get them to remember his power to deliver them from their own pathetic attempts to find lasting fulfillment outside of God. And to get them to remember his promise to send a Messiah, to bleed and be a sacrifice for them, and thus allow them to share in God's power eternally. And of course, through this account, God is also trying to get our attention, to help us remember God's power to overcome and consume our failures, and to allow us to share in God's power eternally. We now hear our song.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire, another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. I should ever need reminding of how I've been set free. There's a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There is another in the fire. this world. I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding, the power set me free. There's a grave that holds nobody, and the power lives in me. There is another in the fire. Oh, 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 I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between words thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the seas. I should ever need reminding how good you've been to me. How come the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. How come the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. How come the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be.
Did you want to floss for us or later? Talent show's coming up, Mr. Strehlow. The talent show is coming up. We'll see you there. We do have a couple quick announcements. We'll start with, someone else can go first? All right. Mr. Hebner, Pastor Hebner, one of you can go first. Don't forget about Amelie Beck.
I'll go first. So tomorrow we're going to start homeroom games. In the announcements, you'll see where you're supposed to go for this. It's just having some competitive fun as we go throughout the year. About every 2 weeks on Wednesday during homerooms, you'll go to these spots. There are 5 venues that you'll go to. Most of them, you're going to compete as a team against the other, those 5 groups in there. But in the choir room, you'll have individual things that you're doing. I'm going to get to your advisor, as I did to some of you already, how to sign up. So we have individual names for sorted out and kabroom and things like that we'll be doing in the choir room. So tomorrow at homeroom time, don't go to your homeroom, go right to your venue, all right? We'll post these things, schedules all over the walls of the building, and they'll be in the announcements as well. Go to your venue tomorrow during homeroom. Thank you.
Just real quick, math team went to the state tournament yesterday and took second in Class AA. Give them a round of applause.
Okay, hi. I'm someone from the speech team. My name is Amelie. And 6:30 tonight, we have our speech showcase. So overall, you should come and support our speech kids. Could I have our speech kids stand up? And can you wave like you're happy to be here? Thank you. So, if you do have any questions, and once you arrive there, there'll be like a list of the speech kids, their categories, and when they're performing. So overall, it is after school, and you can come after your sport practices and come watch your friends perform. Yeah, it starts at 6:30 and here in the chapel. And then Allison's gonna tell you a little bit about the categories in speech.
Okay, so there's gonna be something for everybody here. If you like to laugh, we have that. Very funny pieces. We also have very dramatic and traumatizing somewhat ones. If you feel like that's, the vibe you're going for. There's also gonna be a family-friendly room if you wanna avoid the sad situations. And then there's info if you wanna learn about things like nostalgia, other things that are going on there. So come and enjoy.